My name is Tzvi Weinreb, and I feel very privileged and honored to teach and study together with you a Mishnah in memory of a Rav HaGaon HaGadol, Rav Adin Steinsaltz, Zecher Tzadik Livrocha. The Mishnah I chose to focus on together with you is in Masechet Ta'anit, Perek Gimel, the third chapter of the tractate of Ta'anit, and the eighth Mishnah, Mishnah Chet. Ta'anit is a Masechta, a tractate, which deals with fasting, especially with the laws of fasting in times of trouble. Of course, nowadays too, but certainly in ancient Israel, a drought, lack of rain, was a very serious tzora. No water meant no agriculture meant famine. And so there was instituted a series of fast days to beseech the Almighty, to pray to God to deliver rain. And there were various practices instituted, special prayers, the sounding of the shofar, the frequency of prayers, the timing of the prayers, and all this is discussed especially in this third chapter of Masechet Ta'anit. In the eighth Mishnah, we see presented a problem, a question. Actually, if time allows, there are three questions that I will try to address through a study of this Mishnah. And the three questions are these. Number one, is there such a thing as too much of a good thing? And we speak sometimes of, enough already. I have such bounty, such plenty, so much money, so much success, enough already. Is there such a thing? Such a type of prayer? Number two, is there such a thing as being too familiar, being too friendly, taking advantage of a relationship by being extra familiar? Is that something that sometimes can be impolite, discourteous? Is there such a thing as excessive familiarity? And the third question, is it true that loneliness leads to death? Statistics seem to show, especially during the pandemic that we've all been through to one extent or another, that's led to isolation, excessive solitude, loneliness. What's the relationship between severe loneliness and death? We'll begin with question number one. Is there such a thing as too much of a good thing? This Mishnah begins by saying, Al kol tzora shelo tovo al hatzibur. On any catastrophe that, may it never happen to a tzibur. There's a euphemism in this expression, shelo tovo. Anytime a catastrophe should not happen to a tzibur, to a community, which of course means whenever there's a tzara, whenever there's a catastrophe, a calamity, a serious problem, one should pray. And not only pray, but masriim oleha. But you actually blow the shofar to accompany the prayers. You go all out with the verbal prayers and with the sound of the shofar as part of the prayer compact, as part of the package of prayer. And this goes for every kind of tzora. And the commentaries of the Talmud itself lists various sorrows: war, famine, plague, financial crises, wild animals being on the loose, enemy attacks, terrorism, etc. One prays the full set of prayers plus the shofar. Chutz, there's one exception, and that is meirov gishomim. When there's too much rain, you don't pray to God, Yibon Shalom, stop the rain, enough rain already. You never pray for that. Because rain is a blessing. and to pray that a blessing stops, even though when there's too much of it already and it's flooding the streets and it's closing the highways and it's making life miserable, you don't pray that the rain should stop. Or if you do pray, you certainly don't pray all out with blowing the shofar, etc. The commentaries explain that one should not pray for a bracha to stop. Gishmei bracha, the rain of blessing, rain which helps fertilize the earth and helps supply us with water to drink and to irrigate our fields. You don't say, enough already. There's no such thing as too much of a good thing. However, the commentaries point out, again, based on passages in the Talmud, both in the Babylonian Talmud and in the Yerushalmi, the Palestinian Talmud, the Israeli Talmud, point out that there is such a thing as too much rain. And what this Mishnah means is, if there's Rov Gishomim, too much rain, so that it is not convenient anymore, it's not comfortable, it makes us take detours around certain streets, it keeps us indoors and we can't go out to visit our friends, that type of inconvenience, stay with it. It's good to have a lot of rain. But sometimes too much rain can actually damage the crops, can actually cause damage to houses, could sink under too much rain into mud holes, etc. So in such cases, we can do intensive prayer with the sound of the shofar. In fact, in his commentary, Beis Yosef, Rabbi Yosef Karo, who lived in Tzfat, a long time ago in the 16th century, he said that in Tzfat, they would pray when there was too much rain, because there were earthquakes, there were landslides, there was a different climate than, let's say, Yerushalayim, which is on the hills, and where there is more stone, stronger earth that could support taller and heavier buildings. So it's conditional. There are times when too much of a, quote, good thing is a bad thing. But it has to be really serious damage that too much rain causes before you go all out in prayer. Then the Mishnah continues with a story. The Mishnah is a fascinating collection of works, of books. And sometimes it is very dry, legalistic, these are the laws, etc. And sometimes it's full of all sorts of interesting stories, legendary stories, historical stories. This is a story about a man named Choni HaMa'agel. Some say that his name was Choni, and he was a Ma'agel, meaning his trade, his profession was, he earned a living by rolling rollers onto rooftops where there was tar to cover the roof, and he would want to smooth out the tar, so he had a roller of some sort, a ma'agel, and this ma'agel was the tool of his trade. However, we will see another meaning of ma'agel. Ma'agel doesn't just mean to roll, it means to make a circle, and we'll see as our story unfolds why else he might have been named Choni HaMa'agel. Once the Jewish people, the entire community, he lived in the time of the Second Temple, of the Bayit Sheni, and the people approached him. It was a drought, and they approached him. It was late Adar. It was already almost springtime, and the whole winter there was no rain. His paleel sheyerdu geshomin. Choni HaMa'agel was known as a very pious person. He had a special relationship, as we will see, with the Almighty. And they came to him and said, please pray for rain. Omar lohem, so he said, okay. He was so confident that he had protectia, that he had a special channel to the Almighty, that he was confident he'll pray to God and God will answer his prayer. So he said, there's going to be rain when I pray, so make sure, it's already the end of Adar, it's already 30 days or less before Pesach. So there were Jews in Yerushalayim were getting ready to bring the Korban Pesach, and they took their special ovens, their Pesach Dika ovens, which were made then of klicheres, of clay. So the clay ovens would be, portable ovens, would be susceptible to too much rain. They would dissolve. And so he said, you better bring all those ovens that you now have in your courtyards, bring them indoors, protect them from the rain that is sure to come. So confident was Choni Hamagal to the fact that God would deliver answer to his prayers. So he said, go and bring the Tanurei Psochim, all these ovens which you plan to use when Pesach comes around to roast the Korban Pesach, the Pesach sacrifice, Bishvil Shelo Yimoku, so that they should not dissolve because of the heavy rain. Hispalel, so he started to pray, V'lo Yordu Gishomim, and no rain came. No rain came. The Yerushalmi, the Talmud Yerushalmi comments that he was punished because he was too confident. He was arrogant. Don't worry about it. I'll pray. That's arrogance. Gava, arrogance, is one of the worst sins. So his prayers this time was answered. Choni HaMa'agel was being taught a lesson by God himself. Take it slow, man. Don't depend upon me as if you're my boss. You're not my boss. I'm your boss. So there was no rain. Me'osa, what could he do? Og Uga. He became very, very stubborn, and he had a tactic. He drew a circle in the ground, perhaps the soft earth around him. He made a circle around himself. Og Uga. V'yomad b'socha, and he stood in the midst of the circle. V'yomad, and he said, and some have the text, Omar Lifonov, he said to him with a capital H, to God, Ribono Shel Master of the universe, Bonecha Samu Pneihem Olai, your children have turned their faces toward me. Your people, the Jewish people, are depending upon me. Why are they depending upon me? Who am I? I'm not a great scholar. I'm not such a pious person, but I have a special relationship with you, Rabbi Shalom. I am a member of your household. I'm one of your hangers-on. All right. Shani keven bayis lifonecha. I am like a member of your household. I come and go in your household. I'm very familiar. We have a familiar relationship, Rabbi Shalom, me and you. Kaviyachol. Nishbani b'shimcha hagadol. I swear by your great name. She'eni zos mikan. I'm not moving from this circle. I'm staying right here like a hunger strike. I'm staying here and I'm not budging ad she'tirachem al banecha, until you show compassion for your children, until you make it rain. Is that type of familiarity to the Lord, to the Ribono Shel Olam, is that proper, or is that over the top familiarity? That's already arrogance. We all have people who sometimes frequent our house, maybe stay a while because they have no place else to go, who feel free to come and go, and even to sometimes open our refrigerator and take out a sandwich or something. They are not necessarily our children, but they are b'nei bayis, and but they can't take it too far. They can't abuse the privilege of being a ben or a bat bayis. Was Choni HaMagel taking advantage of familiarity when he referred to his relationship to God himself as I'm a ben bayis, I'm a frequent visitor who has the right to come and go and to ask you whatever I please? Well, it's not clear yet. It began to rain, but droplets, little drizzle. So now he was released from his oath. He could leave the circle because all he asked for was rain, but such a rain, a drizzle, is not going to solve the water shortage. It's not going to help cultivate the farms. Omar, so he said, Lo kach shoalti. No, Ribono Shel Olam, that's not what I asked for. I didn't ask for a little drizzle. Elo gishme boros shichin u'ma'oros. I wanted to be a heavy downpour that can fill the ditches and the cisterns and the reservoirs. Oh, here he's getting really a bit brutishly arrogant. That's not what I wanted. I want something better. That's grounds for some type of criticism against Choni. But Choni was a ben bayis, so he felt It's legitimate for me to really say it as it is. This is not what I meant. The rain started to come down in a heavy downpour, a zab, a hurricane. Well, that's not good either. That's too much of a good thing. Too much rain. Omar, lo kach shoalti. I didn't ask for such a downpour that's going to make a deluge here and going to flood the basements and all the buildings. That's not what I wanted. Elo gishmei rotzon beracha nedava. I want proper, pleasing rain. Rain which is blessed. Rain which is generous. Rain which is helpful. Yordu kisiknon. Then the rain came. It still kept raining, but not downpour. It wasn't a drizzle. It was just right, but it kept raining. It kept raining and raining. It didn't stop. Ad sheyotzu Yisrael mirushalayim. There was so much rain that the Jews left Yerushalayim. Lahar Habayis. They went up to the Temple Mount, which is elevated, and therefore it was high ground, and they were protected from all the rain, the flooding. Mipnei hageshamim. In the Yerushalmi again, it says that it wasn't so much because the Har Habayis, the Temple Mount, was high ground that they went to the high ground, but rather the Temple Mount had like canopies over certain areas, and this way they could find protection from the rain under the canopy. Bo v'yamrulo. Then the people came to him and said, Choni, enough already. Kashem shehispalalto aleihem sheyerdu kach hispalel sheyelchu lohen. Pray that the rain should stop. Pray that the rain should stop. Enough rain already. They were asking enough of a good thing. Amar lohen, he said, Su'u uru'u im nimches even hatoim. With a certain high rock in the middle of Yerushalayim. Here we refer to it as Even HaToim. The Talmud and Masechet of Metzia is called Even HaToim. It's where people would come when they had lost objects that they found. They would announce from this high rock, anybody lose this, etc. People would come and say, yes, it's mine. After all, it has my signature or my special symbol in the corner, etc., and claim it. In other words, if it reached that point, then it's already too much and it's legitimate to pray. But if it hasn't reached that point, okay, it's a lot of rain. You might be inconvenienced in some ways, but you don't ask for rain to stop unless it's really, really bad. Well, Choni HaMagal would seem a very pious man and had been biased by the Lord himself, but he wasn't the chief justice of the Jewish people. That person was a man named Shimon ben Shetach. Sholach lo Shimon ben Shetach, ilmole chone ator. If not for the fact that you were choni, you were a ben biased by the Lord himself, gozrani olecha nidui, I would excommunicate you. Because how you speak to God this way? How are you confident that he'll listen to your prayers? What arrogance. How are you dare say that, no, I don't want this, I want that. And, but what can I do? I can't excommunicate you because you have a special relationship with God. You can, mischate are various interpretations of mischate. Some say you can sin before God, little sins. Like a child pesters his father or his mother. Daddy, buy me this. Daddy, buy me that. Daddy, I want an ice cream cone. Daddy, I want a new toy. That's how you are. And God listens to you. Like a child who talks to his father and says, give me this, give me that. The Talmud expands upon it and says, like the child who says to his father, oh, bathe me today in warm water. No, it's too hot, make it colder. No, it's too cold, make it hotter. Or he says, Daddy, give me almonds. No, not almonds, peaches. No, not peaches, walnuts. And the father gives him what he wants, father overindulges a child. So you have a relationship with God like children sometimes have with their parent. The parent overindulges them when they do some nudging or kvetching, okay? So God, when you kvetch a little bit, he listens to you. I can't put you in chayram, I can't excommunicate you. Olecha hakasav omer, it's upon you that the pasuk says in Sefer Mishlei in the book of Proverbs, Yismach avicha v'imecha, your father and mother rejoice about you. V'sagel yoladetecha, those who gave birth to you are happy and pleased with everything you do, even if it's a little bit too much familiarity and you're taking advantage of them and they might be spoiling you a little bit. A little bit of that is okay. This is a fascinating story about a fascinating man named Choni Hamagel. And it shows us that don't pray that good things should stop unless the good things are really causing heavy damage. If they're just causing you inconvenience, then continue to pray for more of that good thing. Until your lips become worn out from saying enough already. Pray, pray, pray. There's no such thing as too much of a good thing unless the good thing begins to become maladaptive or a negative thing. Number one. Number two, there is such a thing as excessive familiarity, but there are those people who sometimes are so much of a ben bias or biased by God. They have such a close relationship, an intimate relationship with the Ribono Shel Olam. There are such people, and not many. Can't all take advantage of this familiarity. We can't all ask God to do what we want. But there are some people who can say, God, do what I want. And they have a special favor of the Lord. Primary example of this is Noach Motzo Chen B'nei Hashem. God liked Noach. They had a special chen relationship, a special charming friendship, so to speak, between the Lord Almighty, Kavayochel, and certain human beings. That's the end of the Mishnah. The Gemara, however, tells us a bit more about Choni Hamagel. And they say that Choni Hamagel was troubled by a verse with which we're all familiar from the Shir HaMalos, which we say before Birchas HaMazon. And that is that when the end of the Babylonian exile will take place, Hayinu Kecholmim, it would be to us like a dream. The whole exile lasted 70 years. It would be like we fell asleep and dreamed for 70 years. Choni Hamagel couldn't understand it. Is there such a thing as somebody sleeping and dreaming for 70 years, one long nap? I mean, I know people who could sleep around the clock, but 70 years? So he wondered about that. The Gemara tells a fascinating story. Choni Hamagel fell asleep one day. It's an elaborate story with many details, but I'll just tell you the core story. He fell asleep behind a cliff of some sort, where no one could see him. And he had with him his donkey, and it was a female donkey, pregnant, as Rashi says. And he fell asleep, and he slept for 70 years. And he woke up, looks around, no one saw him behind this cliff, but out of this donkey came many, many donkeys. In 70 years, this donkey was pregnant, gave birth to a male child, or maybe to two twins, a male and a female. As Rashi has it, the monkeys are not commanded not to commit incest. So this mother donkey had relations with her colt, with her male child. And from that grew generations of 70 years worth of donkeys. And he decided to go back to his old home. He comes back to his house. He says, figured, well, he fell asleep, maybe, so he's not home, obviously, but maybe his son is home. So he said to the person who went to the door, is Choni Hamagel's son here? So the man said, no, his son is not here, but his grandson is here, because 70 years he had an adult grandchild who was now living in the house. And no one believed him. He went around and said, I am Choni. They said, what? Choni disappeared 70 years ago. You can't be Choni. No one would believe him. He came to the Beis Medrash, and he tried to answer their questions, and they said, we can't believe that you're Choni. You seem to be a great scholar, but you can't be Choni. They didn't believe that he was Choni. They didn't believe he was Choni. So he had no company. He had no company. He prayed to God that God should take his life. And the Gemara puts it in 4 very pithy words. Oy, chavruta, o mituta. Either friendship, companionship, chavruta, or mituta, death. A person cannot live in total solitude. I am in a society, as Rashi in Maseches Taanis says it, I am in a society where no one listens to me. My authority is gone. No one thinks I'm anything. I am a nobody. If I'm a nobody, I can't live here. Death is to be preferred. In Maseches Bava Basra, the language is a bit different. Not that my authority is not listened to, as Rashi says in Masechet Taanis. Not that he was concerned that he no longer had any prestige, but rather very simply says that Rashi there, Im ein lo odom ohavim, if a person doesn't have friends, noach lo sheyamus, it's preferable that he die. It's very pessimistic, but it also teaches us a great lesson. That is the importance of having friends, having companions, being part of a group, etc., etc. There are many, many, many virtues of the late, great Rav Adin Steinzal, Zecher Tzadik Livracha. One of them was that he was a man of chavruta. He was a man of companionship, of friendship, of social connections. Mu'urav im habriot. He was a person that everybody got along with. He didn't get involved in any kind of machlokes or conflict or strife if he could avoid it. He was everyone's friend, easy to approach, approachable. He had chavruta in his lifetime. And sadly, a year ago, he passed from this world. Zechuto yagein aleinu.